I live in one of those neighborhoods that's constantly expanding. On the edge of our suburb, there's a new development called the Highlands. It's been under construction for 2 years, but nobody has moved in yet. It's a skeleton of a neighborhood, perfectly paved roads, black streetlights that haven't been turned on, and rows of identical houses that are just empty shells of wood and drywall. I decided to take my walk there. It was quiet. No cars, no barking dogs, just the sound of my own sneakers on the fresh asphalt. I remember checking my watch as I crossed the temporary construction fence. I told myself I'd do one loop and head back. And the first thing I noticed wasn't a monster or a ghost. It was the smell. Usually construction sites smell like sawdust, wet cement, and cut grass. But as I walked deeper into the Highlands, the air turned sterile. It smelled like a brand new car. That sharp and chemical newness that catches in the back of your throat. I reached the center of the development, a large development with 7 identical houses facing a small circular park. I stopped to catch my breath, leaning against a lamppost. That's when I noticed the grass in the park. I reached down to touch it. It wasn't grass, it was a single continuous sheet of textured green plastic. It didn't have individual blades. It was just a mold, shaped to look like a lawn from a distance. I laughed at first. I figured the developers were just using showroom landscaping until the real stuff arrived. But then I looked at the house directly in front of me. There was a light on in the upstairs window, a soft, warm glow. It didn't make sense. The power wasn't supposed to be connected to this sector yet. I stood there for a long time watching that window. I expected to see a shadow move, maybe a security guard or a squatter, but the light didn't flicker. It was perfectly steady. "All right, time to go," I muttered to myself. The silence was starting to feel heavy. I turned around and headed back the way I came. I walked past the row of unfinished houses, waiting to see the construction fence and the main road. I walked for 5 minutes, then 10. I stopped. I was back at the place I started. The 7 houses were there. The plastic grass was there. And the amber light in the upstairs window was still burning. I felt that cold spike of adrenaline hit the base of my spine. I didn't panic yet. I figured I'd just taken a wrong turn in the dark. These streets all look the same when they aren't labeled. I pulled out my phone to check my GPS, but the screen was just a mess of gray static. No signal, no map, just a dull hum coming from the speaker. I decided to run. I picked a direction, north, toward where I thought the city lights should be, and I bolted. I didn't look at the houses, I didn't look at the sky. I just ran until my lungs burned and my legs felt like lead. I rounded a corner, gasping for air, and my heart nearly stopped. The cul-de-sac. Again. The same 7 houses. The same amber light. I sat down on the curb. I needed to think. I looked up at the sky, hoping to see the moon or a plane. Anything that proved the rest of the world still existed. But the sky wasn't black. It was a flat, matte charcoal color. There were no stars. There were no clouds. It looked like a ceiling that had been painted to look like night. I walked up to the house with the amber light. My hand was shaking as I reached for the front door handle. It wasn't locked. In fact, it wasn't even a real handle. It was a solid piece of plastic, molded into the shape of a handle. The door didn't have hinges. It was just a part of the wall. I hammered my fist against the wood of the door. It didn't sound like wood. It sounded like I was hitting a hollow plastic tank. Is anyone there? The amber light in the window above me finally flickered. I backed away, stumbling into the middle of the street. A sound started to fill the air. It wasn't a voice. It was the sound of 1,000 mechanical clocks, all ticking at slightly different speeds. It was coming from inside the houses. I looked at the house to my left. A light flickered on in its upstairs window. Then the house to my right. One by one, the amber lights were activating, circling me in the cul-de-sac. I felt like I wasn't in a neighborhood, like I was in a storage unit. This wasn't a place meant for people. It was a place where reality was kept when it wasn't being used. One of the front doors, the one I just tried to knock on, began to peel open. Not like a door, but like a sticker being pulled off a surface. A figure stepped out. It was a man. He was wearing a high-visibility construction vest and a hard hat. But his skin, it was the same charcoal color as the sky. He had no eyes, no nose, no mouth. His face was a blank, the way a mannequin looks before the features are carved in. He didn't move toward me. He just stood on the porch and pointed a long gray finger at me.
The shift is over.
A voice boomed. It didn't come from him. It came from the very air around me.
You are in the wrong sector. Please return to the active map.
The ground beneath my feet began to vibrate. The plastic grass started to dissolve into gray dust. I turned and ran, not caring where I was going, just moving away from that blank-faced man. I tripped, falling hard onto the asphalt, and felt a sharp, searing pain in my palm as it scraped against the ground. Everything went white. I woke up face down on the gravel path of the old construction fence. The sun was just starting to peek over the horizon. I could hear the distant sound of real traffic, real birds, and a dog barking a few streets over. I scrambled to my feet, my heart still racing. I looked back at the highlands. It looked normal, messy, half-finished, smelling of sawdust and dirt. No plastic grass, no charcoal sky. I walked home in a daze, telling myself it was a night terror. Sleepwalking. I just had a breakdown from overworking. I went straight to the bathroom to wash the dirt off my face. I looked in the mirror and felt the world tilt. My palm, the one I had scraped when I fell, wasn't bleeding. There was no red. There was no raw skin. Instead, where the skin had been torn away, there was only a flat, matte gray surface. No muscle, no bone, just a smooth, plastic-like substance. I picked up a pair of tweezers and tried to poke at it. I didn't feel any pain. But as I watched, the gray area began to change. Slowly, like a slow-loading image. On a bad connection, the texture of my skin began to grow back over the gray. Line by line, pore by pore, the map was correcting itself. By the time the sun was fully up, my hand looked perfectly normal. But I know what's under there now. I know that if I scrape deep enough, I won't find blood. I'll just find the gray. I haven't gone back for a walk since. And every time I see a new development sign, I turn the car around. Because I know that somewhere out there, the man in the charcoal vest is still waiting for his next shift to start.